کنفرانس بین المللی بروکسل با حضور رئیس جمهور برگزیده مقاومت، فراخوان به آمریکا، اتحادیه اروپا و ملل متحد. اقدام فوری برای حفاظت ساکنان اشرف، سیاست قاطع در برابر تروریسم رژیم آخوندی.
We have with us one person who can speak with great authority about Camp Ashraf due to his direct involvement with the case as part of his responsibility for relations with Iraq for the European Parliament. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Mr. Stevenson.
Ladies and gentlemen, Madam Rajavi and distinguished guests, particularly the distinguished guests who so often cross the Atlantic to fight on behalf of justice and freedom and for the people of Ashraf, thank you very much for your attendance here today. Ladies and gentlemen, today I'm very angry. I went to Iraq in April, 2 weeks after that horrible massacre. I met with virtually all the leaders of government, apart from al-Maliki himself, who was in Korea. And at every meeting we condemned them for the brutality of that massacre. We asked to go to Ashraf, and we were denied the right to visit Camp Ashraf by the Foreign Minister Zabari. And later, members of Congress went to Iraq and asked Nouri al-Maliki himself for permission to visit Ashraf, and were equally told it was out of the question. We were told this was a matter of Iraqi sovereignty, that this is sovereign territory, that the people of the MEK cannot set down their flag and say, even although they've lived there for a quarter of a century, that this is our land. And they said, we are determined to reclaim this land. Now, of course, we know where the pressure for this is coming from. We know that Nouri al-Maliki is only Prime Minister of Iraq because of the pressure from Tehran. He lost the election by 1 seat to Ayad Alawi. But Tehran had a red line against Ayad Alawi and said to Hakim and to Muqtada al-Sadra, neither of whom really have any time for Nouri al-Maliki, you will join his coalition to ensure that he becomes the Prime Minister, not Ayad Alawi. So the strings have been pulled by Tehran ever since. And Tehran, when they say to Mr. Nouri al-Maliki, jump, he always responds, how high? And that is what's happening now with Ashraf. Now, we had a meeting when I was in Baghdad in April with Ambassador Jeffrey and Ambassador Butler, and we were told that Ambassador Butler had a plan for displacement of the Ashraf people inside Iraq to a former US military base. And we said to him, this would be an invitation to murder. And we had 3 months of our resources completely focused on fighting against this mad plan of displacement inside Iraq. And finally, only when the Speaker of the Iraqi Parliament, al-Najafi, came in July to address the Foreign Affairs Committee of the European Parliament and said publicly, displacement of the Ashraf residents inside Iraq is out of the question. Only then did we see sense from the State Department, and it was Ambassador Butler himself who was internally displaced. He lost his job and was replaced, and now we are told that there is no question of internal displacement, but it cost us 3 precious months when we are working against this crazy deadline of 31st December this year for emptying Camp Ashraf. Now, I was asked by Ad Melkert, who was the UNAMI representative in Iraq at that time when I was there in April, if I would speak to the leadership of the NCRI in Paris. And whenever I returned, I went straight to Paris, had meetings with Mrs. Rajavi and Mr. Mahadassan and the rest of the leadership for 5 hours until we brokered a negotiated settlement which the people of Ashraf, the leadership there, accepted. And this was the resettlement of the 3,400 people in the 27 countries of the European Union and to any other friendly countries outside of Europe that would take them. And I came back and got the backing of my delegation for relations with Iraq in the European Parliament for this plan. We then got the backing of the Foreign Affairs Committee for this plan. And then we said to the Iraqi government, we are now working hard to achieve your objective. Please cooperate with us. And what has been their response? Well, the response has been to tell us that they fully respect the human rights of the 3,400 residents in Ashraf. Well, you know, if their respect for human rights is all about 300 loudspeakers around the perimeter fence blaring propaganda and death threats 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, denying access to medicine, to fuel, to proper food, denying proper medical care to the people who they wounded, so that some of them have died, others suffering from serious illnesses have died. The dead lay unburied for weeks after the massacre in April. And that's why I am angry. The message is crying out for action from Washington, from Brussels, from the capital cities of Europe. That's why every politician in this room has got to go out from here and spread this message. Let me say this. Nouri al-Maliki has already been indicted by a Spanish judge for crimes against humanity. If he perpetrates any more violence against the people of Ashraf, he will face justice. He will face justice. Now, people try to tell me that the MEK has no support inside Iran. You know, I hear all these ridiculous comments when I go to visit the State Department in Washington. Even in Geneva, I have had similar experiences to Judge Mukasey and heard all these silly arguments. Well, let me ask them, how do they know they have no support inside Iran? Has somebody gone there and taken an opinion poll? If you stand up in Iran and say, I support the MEK, you will immediately be arrested, tortured and executed. It's a statutory offence on the constitution of Iran to support the MEK, which carries a mandatory death penalty. How ludicrous for people to make this accusation. And I always reply to them, the Iranian diaspora, who can get together in Paris every year for the annual rally in their tens of thousands, over 100,000 this year. All of them have families in Iran. And if you count all of their supporters and their families in Iran, they must number millions. They, not Mousavi or Karabi, are the real opposition.